Hello, I'm Raymond Go, and Nightline begins now. The top stories. 666 plane tragedy. Sabah Air was operating illegally, says Australia report. And 30 Malaysians stranded in Sudan safely depart for Jeddah. Good morning. The airline that operated the ill-fated aircraft that crashed in 1976 and claimed the lives of then Sabah Chief Minister Tun Fuad Stevens and 10 others was essentially operating illegally. This was among the findings of the Australian Disaster Report Tribunal on the incident known as the 666 tragedy, which was released by the Australian government on Wednesday. According to the declassified 46-year-old report issued by the aircraft manufacturer Government Aircraft Factories GAF, Sabah Air had submitted a draft of its operations manual in 1975, which the then Civil Aviation Department CAD never approved. In addition, the report showed not just a singularly poor operation by Sabah Air, but also a failure on the part of the CAD to fulfill its obligations as the local certification authority. The findings also concurred with that of Malaysia's recently declassified report, which also suggested that the GAF Nomad aircraft was being operated illegally and that the pilot had allowed for the aircraft to be overloaded in the aft or rear section. Australian High Commissioner to Malaysia, Dr. Justin Lee, in a tweet on Wednesday, said the records have been declassified and were available on the National Archives of Australia website. Australia's report came in the wake of Malaysia's release of its own official report on the tragedy, which was made public on April 12. The report also suggested that Sabah Air failed to obtain approval for the Nomad aircraft and that there were no elements of sabotage or engine failure. Meanwhile, the Australian report also stated that the co-pilot left the plane to make space for one more passenger who sat in the co-pilot's seat, the son of then Sabah Chief Minister Tun Fuad Stevens Johari. He said the pilot had accompanied Captain Gandhi to Labuan, was offloaded, and a passenger occupied the co-pilot's seat. The passenger was identified as the son of the Chief Minister, and he was an inexperienced student pilot. The 52-page report also revealed that Tun Fuad might have unintentionally put Captain Gandhi as the pilot despite his substandard ability, as identified by then Sabah Air Chief Pilot M. Nadan. Nadan was then among those laid off by Tun Fuad after he took office as the Chief Minister 6 weeks prior to the tragedy. "30 Malaysians who were stranded in Khartoum, Sudan, following clashes between the Sudanese army and the paramilitary Rapid Support Force RSF have safely departed from the country. The Foreign Ministry said the evacuees left Port Sudan on board a Saudi naval vessel bound for Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, following a 30-hour land journey from the conflict-torn capital. In a Facebook posting on Wednesday, the ministry said that after the arduous journey by land, the evacuees will need to travel across the Red Sea, which is expected to take at least 12 hours. The ministry also thanked the governments of Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates for making the evacuation mission a success. Also evacuated were 26 other foreign nationals from Cambodia, Palestine, the Philippines, Singapore, Sudan, Thailand, and the United States. Earlier, Foreign Minister Dr. Sri Zamri Abdul Qadir reportedly said that the evacuees would be transported to a safe zone first, either to Jeddah or Cairo in Egypt, before being flown back to Malaysia. The rescue mission is underway as the conflict in Sudan had escalated to a dangerous level due to the clashes between the Sudanese army and the RSF, causing thousands of foreigners to be stranded, including diplomats and humanitarian aid workers. In the meantime, a former Sudanese politician wanted for alleged crimes against humanity has said that he and other former officials are no longer in jail following reports of a breakout. Ahmad Harun was among those being held in Koba prison in the capital Khartoum, who are facing charges by the International Criminal Court (ICC). Reports emerged earlier this week of a prison break at Koba, where Harun was serving a sentence alongside Sudan's former president, Omar al-Bashir. Harun was indicted by the ICC in 2007 for his alleged role in the atrocities in Darfur, described as the first genocide of the 21st century, when he was the country's interior minister. He faces 20 counts of crimes against humanity and 22 counts of war crimes, with charges including murder, rape, persecution, and torture. The Health Ministry will propose the usage of face masks in all schools again to avoid a resurgence of COVID-19 due to the new variant known as Arcturus. Its Minister Dr. Zaliha Mustafa said she would soon convene an urgent meeting with Education Minister Fadlina Siddiq to discuss the matter ahead of the reopening of schools on May 2nd. Dr. Zaliha, in a statement on Wednesday, said the meeting will be held this week to discuss the need to control the spread of COVID-19 in schools, especially with the new Arcturus variant. The meeting will also outline the new guidelines and standard operating procedures for pupils, which will be issued prior to the reopening of schools on May 2nd. She added, while the Health Ministry will suggest necessary measures to control any spread of COVID-19 at schools, the final decision lies with the Education Ministry. According to Dr. Zaliha, the ministry has detected 6 new cases of the new variant in the Klang Valley, which brings the total number of infected cases to 12 so far. The Health Ministry had recently urged for the education sector to conduct follow-up screenings for 11 out of the 18 COVID-19 clusters reported in the 7th epidemiological week in 2023, which were from the education sector. Authorities are taking measures to prevent further incidents following a landslide near the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Academy, MACA, at Persiaran Tunku site Sirajuddin Bukit Tunku in Kuala Lumpur on Tuesday. Sentul District Police Chief ACP Bay Eng Lai said that the affected area will be covered with canvas to prevent the flow of water from permeating in the ground and ensure the water flows down easily.
Fasa pertama kita akan buat di sempadan pagar IIM. Itu mengambil masa lebih kurang 2 hari untuk siapkan pemasangan curucur besi. Lepas siap dipasang curucur besi, maka di situ kita akan membuat satu jalan akses baru untuk mengeluarkan semua kenderaan yang tersadai di dalam markah.
The installation of iron piles around the landslide area would begin on Friday and is expected to take 2 weeks to complete. Bay added the Public Works Department had asked a competent contractor to install ground movement sensors at 10 points around the affected area, as there were still small landslides occurring near the site. Meanwhile, there is a proposal for the Kuala Lumpur City Hall (DBKL) to empower the Civil Engineering and Drainage Department to ensure that its slope unit is equipped with expert personnel to deal with erosion and landslide issues more effectively. Segambut Member of Parliament Hannah Yeo also asked DBKL to ensure the reports and complaints regarding soil erosion incidents are investigated seriously. Yeo said the proposal needs to be seriously considered based on the trend last year in the Segambut parliamentary constituency, which was affected by many landslide incidents.
Dan yang saya minta Datuk Bandar adalah untuk perkasakan unit kejuruteraan dan yang menjaga tanah runtuh ini, kerana kejadian ataupun kes banyak dan kemungkinan besar sumber manusia itu mungkin tidak mencukupi.
She said this after inspecting the site of the landslide in front of the academy on Wednesday. Yeo, who is also the Youth and Sports Minister, also said many hilly areas in the Segambut and Lembah Pantai parliamentary areas are believed to have had many cases of landslides. She also pointed out that there were more than 100 incidents of landslides reported around the Segambut parliamentary area alone. The Pulau Pinang South Islands PSI project has been given the final approval by federal environmental regulators. Chief Minister Chow Kon Yeow said the Environmental Impact Assessment EIA approval was granted with 71 conditions to be fulfilled under an elaborate environmental management plan. According to Chow, the approval from the Department of Environment under the Natural Resources, Environment and Climate Change Ministry was received by the State Secretary, Dr. Muhammad Sayuti Bakar, through a letter dated April 11th. The stipulated conditions for the PSI project included the need for the Social Impact Management Plan, SIMP, and PSI Ecology Offset Master Plan, PEOM.
Kerja-kerja tambakan hanya akan dimulakan selepas kelulusan EMP diperoleh, yang mana ia dijangka akan bermula pada suku ketiga tahun ini.
Chow told this to reporters at a media conference at Komtar on Wednesday. He added that the EIA approval was for the construction of 3 artificial islands, currently identified as A, B and C, adding that reclamation works will start on the 283-hectare Island A, which will be turned into a green tech park and is expected to take 9 years to complete. The controversial reclamation project involving an area measuring approximately 1,800 hectares in the waters of Permatang Damar Laut near Bayan Lepas previously received fierce opposition from the fishing community and environmental non-governmental organizations in the state over concerns that it would adversely affect marine life and ecosystem. It had undergone a comprehensive process with regard to the EIA report approved on June 25, 2019, but there was an appeal until the decision was overturned. A new report was submitted on April 29th last year. The Credit Counseling and Debt Management Agency, AKPK, said it has confirmed that some data obtained from a data breach, which it announced on March 30th, has been published on the dark web. AKPK said it has determined that approximately 20 customers have had personal information such as their names and MyCard numbers published. In a statement on Wednesday, AKPK said investigations with third-party cybersecurity experts is currently ongoing and that it anticipates and is preparing for the criminals to publish more information, including additional customer names and MyCard numbers. The agency is working closely with law enforcement and other relevant authorities, including the Communication and Digital Ministry, as well as Cybersecurity Malaysia, in the ongoing thorough investigation. AKPK is also working to identify the specific information that has been illegally accessed and update the customers that have been affected. It added that it will continue to mitigate the impact of the breach and reach out directly to communicate with all customers. The agency also issued a reminder that the acquisition, use and dissemination of information in the possession of cyber criminals is a criminal offense. On March 30th, AKPK announced that it had discovered that its server containing customer data may have been illegally accessed and that it had taken measures to put operational systems offline temporarily. After this breather, Thai woman arrested for allegedly killing 10 with cyanide. Details when Nightline returns. In Thailand, police have arrested the wife of a senior officer on suspicion of murdering 10 people by poisoning them with cyanide. The suspect, identified as Sararat Rangsi Wutapon, was arrested in Bangkok on Tuesday over the killings, which took place over several years. Police believe that money was the motive in the killings, as families of most of the victims reported money or jewelry missing from the deceased's body or bank account after making contact with the suspect. The sums missing ranged from $1,800 to $9,000. Police said if the evidence shows that the 35-year-old committed all of the murders, then she will fit the description of a serial killer. Meanwhile, Sararat's lawyer on Wednesday said her client has denied all charges. Singapore on Wednesday executed a man convicted of drug trafficking, ignoring international calls for the city-state to abolish capital punishment. Tanggaraju Supaya, aged 46, had been convicted for abetting the trafficking in 2013 of more than 1 kilogram of cannabis, double the threshold for the death penalty in a city-state, which is known for its tough laws on narcotics. It was understood that the prisoner was hanged after the president rejected pleas for clemency on the eve of the execution. A well-known opponent of the death penalty, British billionaire Richard Branson, said the verdict against Tanggaraju did not meet standards for criminal conviction, as he was not near the drugs when he was arrested. In response, the government said Branson was peddling falsehoods and disrespecting its justice system, adding that its courts spent more than 3 years examining the case and Branson's claim was patently untrue. The United Nations offered not to proceed with the execution and to adopt a formal moratorium on executions for drug-related offences. China is pushing ahead with the largest ever expansion of its nuclear arsenal, modernizing the atomic deterrent with an eye on any future conflicts with the United States. The SIPRI think tank estimates that China has a stockpile of around 350 nuclear warheads, small fry when compared with the United States and Russia. However, according to a Pentagon estimate published in November, it is growing fast and could have 1,500 warheads by 2035. The Pentagon also said last year that China is rapidly building launch facilities for intercontinental ballistic missiles with more than 300 silos in total. The Taliban has killed the ISIS terrorist who plotted the deadly attack at Kabul's airport during the chaotic evacuation of Afghanistan in 2021, an assault that fatally wounded more than 170 people and 13 U.S. troops. The ISIS leader, whose identity has not yet been released, was killed in southern Afghanistan in early April as the Taliban conducted a series of operations against the group. The attack on August 26 was one of the darkest chapters of the chaotic withdrawal of American military and diplomatic personnel over 20 years of war in Afghanistan.
Explosive ordnance disposal team.
badminton. Independent men's singles shuttler Liu Darren has announced his retirement from the sport. The 35-year-old has been battling injuries for the past year and has made the decision to call it a day. Darren did not elaborate on his decision as he wants to focus on his role as coach for world number 4 Li Zijia for now. Darren is currently coaching Zijia in the Asian Championships in Dubai. Turning to football now, the Taça de Portugal. SC Braga eased into the final despite being held to a 2-2 draw by Nacional in the second leg of their semi-final clash.
Braga took the lead after 33 minutes when Uros Racic converted a penalty after he was tripped in the penalty area by Nacional defender Jose Gomez. The hosts doubled the advantage on the night 3 minutes into the second half as Rodrigo Gomez won the ball off Nacional substitute Sergio Marquez before hitting a shot past goalkeeper Lucas Franca from inside the box. Nacional halved the deficit in the 72nd minute through Clayton's header following Pipe Gomez's free kick before Dudu leveled the score in the dying minutes from the spot after a clumsy challenge by Vitor Tormena. The goals, however, failed to prevent Braga from sealing an emphatic 7-2 aggregate victory following a resounding 5-zip first leg victory. Braga will face either FC Porto or Famalicão in the final on Sunday.
Still to come, 2-story kindergarten destroyed by massive flames. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Nightline. The remains of the first Malay female professor, Puan Sri Professor Emeritus Dr. Fatimah Hamid Don, were laid to rest at the Taman Medan Muslim Cemetery in Petaling Jaya at 2:45 p.m. on Wednesday. She was 89. The educationist breathed her last at 2:35 a.m. at KPJ Tawakal Hospital in Kuala Lumpur while recovering from a stroke that happened a year ago.
The funeral prayers was held at the Tun Abdulaziz Mosque in Section 14 before her body was brought to the cemetery for burial after the midday prayers. She leaves behind 2 daughters and 2 granddaughters. The late Puan Sri Professor Dr. Fatimah was a respected figure in national education and women empowerment. She had served in the education field from 1956 and held various positions, including as an education officer, teacher, and college lecturer. She was the first Malay woman to obtain a PhD in the field of education at the University of California in the U.S. and was also the former dean of the Faculty of Education, University Malaya, from 1978 to 1990. She was conferred the title of Professor Emeritus for her outstanding contribution in improving the quality of education in the country before retiring in 1990, after serving at UM for 26 years.
In Johor, a video call between a wife and her husband, who is a crew member of an oil platform at Tanjung Langsat Port near Pasir Gudang, proved crucial in saving his and his co-workers' lives during a robbery on the oil rig 2 days ago. The quick action by the crew member's wife, who reported the incident to maritime authorities when she saw her husband's mobile phone being snatched by an individual during their video call, had led to the arrest of all 4 robbers.
During the 10:30 p.m. incident, only 2 crew members aged 24 and 32 were on the platform, located 0.7 nautical miles northeast of the port's jetty.
Ketika kejadian itu, mereka telah dinaiki. Pelantar minyak ini, pelantar ini telah dinaiki oleh 3 suspek yang bertopeng dan bersenjata tajam seperti parang. Suspek telah bertindak menyerang dengan menumbuk muka salah seorang mangsa dan mengancam mereka dengan senjata tajam. Kemudian mereka telah diikat kakinya, tangan dan mulut serta dikurung dalam sebuah kabin di atas pelantar.
A maritime patrol boat then arrived at the scene at 12:30 a.m. on Tuesday, after being alerted to the incident, and found a fiberglass boat used by the 4 suspects under the platform. The suspects then tried to sink the boat and attempted to jump into the sea to escape, but failed and were arrested. All 4 suspects have been remanded for 5 days from Tuesday, and the case is being investigated under the Penal Code for gang robbery.
A 2-story preschool in Kampung Jalan Kebun, Section 30, Shah Alam, was almost entirely destroyed in a fire on Wednesday afternoon. Selangor Fire and Rescue Department Director Moni Muhammed said the fire raised about 90% of the Pusat Asuhan Tunas Islam in the 12:37 p.m. incident. Firemen from the Shah Alam, Kota Anggerik, Andalas and Port Klang stations were deployed to the scene. When they arrived at the location, the fire had spread to the adjacent shop lots and homes. The fire was brought under control by 1:22 p.m. No one was harmed in the incident, and both the homeowners and premises owners were able to evacuate the area safely. Investigations are still underway to identify the cause of the fire. As we close Nightline today, let's take a look at Sevilla's annual April Fair, which was filled with the sound of guitars, flamenco dresses, and the rhythm of Andalusian dances. You've been with me, Raymond Goh, for the past half an hour. Thank you for tuning in, and take care.